When you take a deeper look at Lewis Cine's night against the Seahawks on Thursday, you see where it's going, you see where it's headed, and you see that it's worth pursuing. Let me explain. It's the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You like that on 3, 1, 2, 3, you like it!
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I am your host, Luke Braun. Let's find some joy today. You can find the Locked On Vikings podcast wherever you find your favorite shows, whether it is YouTube, Amazon Fire, or Roku, if you download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app, or a podcasting app, or any audio listening place like SiriusXM. You can find us there. Just download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Thank you so much to those of you who listen to this show every single day. My hashtag everydayers, I appreciate you all so much. Today on the show, it's like a tape review show. We'll talk about a whole bunch of the things that I noticed watching all of the All-22 film of the preseason game, and some of the, editing some of the initial reaction stuff. And that's going to be the way that things go. If you're new to Locked On Vikings for the season, for one, you may have noticed there was kind of a bonus thing after the show, or after the right after the preseason game, a little audio from the postcast with me and Sam Ekstrom. That'll be after every game, so you can look forward to that. You can also catch it live on YouTube, on the Locked On Minnesota Sports YouTube channel, if you just want to pop in right after every game. So that's going to be a thing that goes on. But also, kind of the way that I do this is, look, instant reactions are instant reactions, right? Well, I'll talk about whatever I'm thinking immediately after the game on the show. That'll go up on Monday after the game. So I'm glad that we kind of get this chance. This is what makes me really grateful for this being a daily show, because I do get the opportunity to come back the next day and say, hey, I actually, have a different thought on this before we have to spin into the next game. So let's do that. And I want to start with Lewis Cine, who I thought had a really, really rough night. And you could still argue that, I think. If you really wanted to be mad about that night, I think you have enough grounds to be. But I get it. I guess I'll say. I get it. So here's what I noticed with Lewis Cine. For one, when he sees what is happening on a play, in particular in run plays, which develop more quickly, and this is harder on run plays, especially counters and things with lots of pullers, he triggers downhill and closes so fast. That first play, you might remember that kind of round the neck tackle against Jackson Smith-Njigba that he came all the way across the field to do. He did that 4 or 5 times in the game. And I don't think that really dawned on me just how impressive those reps were until you really can zoom out and see how far away he was coming from. And the problem was that he wasn't wrapping. He wasn't tackling properly. He had one really good tackle in the middle of the field on a 2nd and 20, and a whole bunch where he didn't wrap properly. He didn't get his head up properly, and he just sort of went for a big hit thinking that, he was going to blow a guy up, but it was like Zach Charbonnet, who's a bowling ball of a human, and he just bounced right off him. And it's really, really, really frustrating because you see, the hard part is getting there. The tackling is the thing you drill maybe the most over your football career, from starting tackle football, and whatever, level you started at, which I believe for Lewis Cine was pretty early, all the way up through the pros. You tackle every day. You always drill tackling. I mean, that's the fundamentals, right? So that's the part you should be able to take for granted. The free safety coming in, being a part of a run fit he kind of has no business being a part of, that is the special thing. I mean, that's the rare thing. You do not see that from free safeties. You're not getting that from Anthony Harris or Andrew Sendejo. You are getting that from Lewis Cine. It's really exciting if he could wrap up and tackle on those plays. He would have probably been the best player on the field. It's just get that basic down. So it's I don't know how you deal with that, you look at that play, and I think about thinking from a perspective of a PFF, which, as I predicted, gave him a horrible grade, as in the 20s or something. And I think about that, okay, you're the free safety on the backside of the play, and you come knifing all the way across, down from a 15-yard deep alignment, and you meet the guy in the hole at the line of scrimmage. on an outside run on the other side of the field. Deeply insane. Just like moving making the rest of the field look like it's moving in slow motion. And then you miss the tackle. And from a PFF charting and grading perspective, they're going to say missed tackle, that's a ding. And I don't know, it's debatable. Was that a bad play or good play? What kind of question are you at trying to answer here, right? If he misses that tackle, I guess the analytic and charting principle is, well, if he missed one tackle, he's that much more liable to miss tackles in the future, right? A guy who misses tackles will continue to miss tackles. And if that's the only tackle he ever missed, then that's probably not going to affect the math that much. But each tackle increases your likelihood. That seems like logic to me. So, we'll downgrade him for that and we'll add it to our math accordingly. But I guess the contention that I would have is when you see a guy knife across the play from a crazy range, doesn't that also imply that he's going to keep doing that? And which one is more likely to go away? Which kind of thing sustains itself more when you see it? And I see those plays where guys knife across the field like that. They're not common. It's a hard thing to do. But a guy who can do it is a guy who can do it. Like, you don't do that on accident, right? And you definitely aren't going to make an effort to stop doing that, but you are going to make an effort to stop tackling. Or stop missing tackles, right? That's going to be something that he probably drills a lot. There was a play that he probably got that note. There was a play where he missed a tackle because he's been going too high. And that's what's been wrong with his tackling form. He comes in too high and he doesn't break down, which is part of it. He's coming in like a bat out of hell, right? And he's coming in at such a high speed. And this is how he did it in college. He would just light a guy up. He'd hit you at full speed, light you up, and you wouldn't really have to like shoot the hip, wrap and tackle, right? Wrap and drop. But in the NFL, you kind of do have to shoot the hip, wrap, and drop when you're coming in from that at that speed. And if you can't do that at that speed, that's fine. Then you have to break down like you're a punt gunner, and chop your feet a little bit, slow yourself down. You're not coming to a full stop. You're just trying to get yourself under control. And he's not taking that step. So maybe that's the fix. Maybe you say, all right, you just got to break down before you tackle, buddy. Like, that's just how. And you're going to be that much slower. And we maybe give up 2 extra yards when you come in and make that tackle, but a 2-yard gainer or a line of scrimmage play from the free safety. Like, either way, that's bananas. So we're taking it. But honestly, I think it's just a matter of drilling it, which I remind you, he spent most of his rookie year on the rehab field. You're not drilling tackling when you're rehabbing your leg. You've been working to get your body right for so long that the speed of the game just isn't there for you anymore. And you have to get it back and knock that rust off. And that's the other thing is in coverage situations, there was a hesitancy. I think he's looking at route concepts and knowing what he's seeing, but not trusting it. There are times when he sees it and he goes toward it, but he will hesitate, or he'll keep his depth when he really should be driving down on something. There was a big long catch Yankee rep that was like a big deep over with a clear out, and Cine was the free safety there, and it was cover 3. And I'll spare you the boring scheme stuff, but basically that was his job. Was he was in the middle of the field, the deep over ran in front of him, and he was supposed to nail down on it. But he kept his depth. He ran with it, but he stayed high, and he was still the route was 10 yards in front of him. So he was 10 yards away from the route when that ball was thrown. He couldn't break on it. He's got to nail down on that. That's why they call it nailing down. You got to get to it and contest that ball. But he kept his depth, which is kind of I don't really trust this kind of move. What if I'm wrong? What if he's going to go a lot deeper? And what if, if I overcommit to this, he's going to double move past me or something. He was looking at Yankee. He knew it was Yankee, but he just didn't trust it. So I think he's, get a couple of confidence boosting plays and get that tackling under wraps. And we got a dude here. And I think the luxury is we don't need him right now. We've got Metellus who's playing well, Bynum who's playing well. I mean, these guys have been very much anointed as bona fide contributors. And then, of course, Harrison Smith on the back end as well. We got 3 dudes that can be a big nickel package that Brian Flores loves to use. So there's no urgency here. I think you get this sense of urgency with a first round pick where you go, this guy needs to be on the field right away. And if he's not on the field right away, we have to start hitting the panic button and trade him to Buffalo for a 7th round pick. It's not really though, right? I think I get it. I feel okay about it. Maybe he'll miss some tackles, and if he can get some of that confidence, I don't know. I'm coming away a lot less concerned than I was before. I think it's still fair to call it a bad game, but it's one that I think we can be a little more forgiving of, I guess. There was another guy that got a lot of flack that I sort of want to dive into, and I've got a few other odds and ends as well that I want to make sure that I get to. But first, it is fantasy football season. And as you get ready for your draft, a great warm-up might be to join a best ball at Underdog Fantasy, sponsor of today's episode. Underdog's Best Ball Mania tournament is the largest fantasy football contest of all time, and it's back even bigger. $15 million prize pool, $3 million to the winner. Completely insane. A best ball is one live snake draft. No waivers, no trades. You just draft your team and you let it ride. Underdog will pick your best lineup for you every week. So it's fire and forget. You're not joining a whole nother league, and it's not a whole big commitment like that. But you can see how that team progresses over the course of the year. You can try it out at underdogfantasy.com, or you can find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code LOCKEDON, and you can get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code LOCKEDON to join that Underdog Best Ball Mania tournament. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. My hashtag everydayer. Shout out if you can. I love hearing from you. The next guy I want to talk about was Ed Ingram. I think he played like 13, 14 reps. There was a lot of bluster about, what does it mean for Ed Ingram to like get reps in the preseason when none of the other starting linemen were? Are we signing Dalton Reisner? All the reporting on Reisner, by the way, if you're looking for an update on that, and guys like Ronald Darby, Kareem Hunt also visited, is that they're just kind of Rolodex things. All right, we got to work out. We got to know him a little bit. We got him on speed dial. We have no plan to sign him right now, but if the need arises in the middle of the season, we got your phone number. That's the situation right there. So I would, if you're sitting there holding your breath to say, are they finally going to start Reisner? It feels like it's imminent. It's not imminent. A thing needs to happen. An injury or a trade or a cut or something weird needs to happen and to change the dynamic. And then they'll maybe call him up. But hey, yeah, it was weird that he played in the preseason. And did I just see him lose a bunch of reps? What's going on here? So I did a Patreon video at this, patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. I'm going to try to post 2 or 3 a week, as best I can for, however I can with like my schedule and stuff. But Ingram was one, and then I'll do a big Lewis Cine one as well. That sort of talks about some of the stuff I went over in the beginning here. So go check that out. But I would say there was one rep of Ingram's that I thought was like actually really bad. There was one where it looked like he got thrown down. I think if you look really, really close, I'm pretty sure he tripped. You can see his toe kind of flick against somebody else's leg or something like that. And he loses his balance, and then it like looks a lot uglier than it is. That's something like whenever a lineman gets tossed like that, that's like always the first thing is like, okay, was this really that dominant, or did he just get his feet tangled? A lesson I've learned the hard way by being wrong about stuff one too many times. But there was another one where he got backdoored really bad on the backside of a zone rep, and you take your bucket step to the play side, and then the defensive lineman takes his initial step to the backside of the play, and then suddenly he's just in the gap and he's completely away from you. That's fine. That's completely fine, because on an outside zone run, your responsibility is the gap to your play side. So if the run is to the left, it's the gap to your left. If the run is to the right, it's the gap to your right. So if he wants to go to the gap to your backside and come on up, that's actually kind of fine. Especially if you're, the backside guard, the right guard on a left side run, which is where this happened. Like, he can do that. So you can sort of afford to super overcommit with your bucket step, because if he wants to backdoor you, if he wants to hesitate just so he can get up in the backfield and then start pursuing, that's a defensive tackle chasing Ty Chandler. Yeah, you can try that. Good luck. And you know what? If you make that play, God bless you. You did it. But committing that hard is going to create more more W's than L's. So I don't mind that technique at all. The only play I didn't actually like was the miscommunication. And a lot of people broke this down, but essentially he thought the center was sliding with him and the center wasn't sliding with him. So he passed a guy off to nobody, kind of like a coverage bust. Communication issue. You go back to the sideline, he and Austin Schlottman talk about it, and it didn't happen for the rest of the night. Although I think it was like the second to last rep. But watch it. Like, if this keeps happening, then yeah, we got to have a longer discussion about it. But honestly, this is the kind of thing that, yeah, you have a discussion about it and then the problem is solved. And I think there is, when all you have is a hammer, anything looks like a nail. And when the only, think about what are the team's options when a player is struggling. Say, Ed Ingram were doing really, really, really bad. Okay, what are the players' options? Brainstorm. What can you think of? You think of benching him, cutting him, replacing him with something else. All various versions of firing the guy. But what about what the Vikings did this offseason, which is committing to using more skill players in the run game, 12 personnel, 21 personnel, and stuff like that. Give him more double teams, make things a little bit easier. There are schematic levers that they can pull that help to hide a guard that is struggling. And I don't even think he struggled that much. But if there's a problem, solve it. Don't fire the guy that has the problem. And I think that's a principle that I've always held for years and years. It's like, hey, we don't fire somebody every time they screw up. If you do that, by the end of the year, you won't have a team. So it's a bad rep, so you can mark him down for it, but it doesn't bug me in the sense that I don't really fear that as a consistent problem moving forward until I see it a few more times. And beyond that, he had some really dominant reps, really pushing guys into the, two gaps across. He has a very mean punch that pushes people a lot back. And it's weird. I don't want to cape for Ed Ingram. It's just, I don't want to, but I don't like it when people are really confidently wrong. And I can say with a decent degree of confidence that he had at worst a fine game. And it's certainly not one that the coaches are going to be concerned about. So I wouldn't hold your breath on any imminent Dalton Reisner happenings because of Ed Ingram's PFF grade or whatever the hell. There's some other stuff. I guess let's stick with the O-line a little bit. Because watching the second team O-line and really focusing in on it, honestly, I thought those guys did great. Vidarian Lowe has tightened. He really has tightened his feet up. And that was something I was asking from him when I made a video on him not too long ago on his last preseason tape, last time we saw him play. So I thought he did well. I thought Brandell did decently as a left guard. There was one sack that I thought was on him, not reacting to the stunt properly, but then there was another rep where he did so beautifully. So again, that's another okay, here's a problem. And then look, they solved it in real time. I am now no longer worried about this. So I kind of see the vision. And I think my eyebrow raise, I'm sure a lot of your eyebrows raised too when you heard Blake Brandell has moved to guard and Vidarian Lowe and Oli Udoh are the tackles. Udoh was a different case. He had a fair amount of L's, but a fair amount of really good reps too. And that's kind of who he is as a tackle. It's very up and down, which is not necessarily what you want from O-line, but hey, at least there are ups. But it's okay, I see the vision for this line. I get it with Udoh and Vidarian Lowe as sort of the backup tackles, and maybe even those guys competing for one roster spot as the swing tackle, with Blake Brandell also as kind of the quote-unquote fourth tackle, even though we've got him as a guard. Hey, if we're down 3 guys, we're in a good enough pinch to ask you to move back. Maybe not. Maybe they just keep all these guys and Austin Schlottman, maybe they keep 10 linemen. Who knows? But I see Vidarian Lowe coming into his own as a tackle, and I see Blake Brandell not quite thriving, but at the very least making it as a guard. And I go, okay, their plan made sense to me. I get it. The only guy on the O-line that really bugged me consistently, I thought Schlottman had a pretty poor night. Just a lot of misses, a lot of getting beat, a lot of ending up in one-on-ones and getting cooked. So I don't know, mark that down. But there's a whole bunch of other odds and ends and random players that I want to talk about. The stuff I either want to amend or stuff that I just didn't notice that I want to tell you about. So we'll sort of go into rapid fire mode right after I talk to you about the best place in the world to gamble. Football season is, of course, right around the corner, the real season, and that means there's still a little bit of time for you to get in your preseason bets, your over-unders for yardage totals and stuff like that, your win totals, division futures, although you can continue to bet on those in the season at FanDuel as well. And right now, there's a really, really great promo going on. When you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. So you can just say, Super Bowl Chiefs, I just bet on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. Probably not the greatest. I think they're the favorites still, so the worst odds. But then every time the Chiefs win a regular season game, you get bonus bets. Just pick any team and get bonus bets for every single victory. And you can spend those bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more, whether or not your Super Bowl winning bet actually wins. And hey, that could win too. And you get even more. FanDuel.com/lockedon is where you can go claim that. The app is safe, secure, and super easy to use, and it pays out instantly when you win. So once again, go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. So let's get into some of the rapid fire stuff that I noticed. And I guess let's start with the quarterbacks, because I came away thinking, man, both Mullins and Hall didn't have a great night. But I remember thinking hey, at least Mullins had a shot, but he was back in the pocket a lot and double clutching and being really indecisive. And that was really weird. And Jaren Hall at least has this O-line excuse where, guys like Jack Snyder and Christian DeLorio are just giving up instant pressures, flushing him out of the pocket. And, receivers were not uncovering in the scramble drill. What's he supposed to do about that? And I stick by one and not the other. So the Jaren Hall half, watching it, it's just the guys just didn't work. The offense just didn't happen. And I really struggle to look at times when it was really truly his fault. What I will say is I think he's reading slowly right now. And I think he's finding the right place to be, but he's just not getting there quickly. And that's making everything just a little bit harder. Now, I don't think the O-line, if he were reading quickly, I still think he would have been under pressure. He's not causing the pressure, but it would in other situations. So you just kind of want to see him look a little bit more comfortable. But hey, you know what? Rookie, I get it. New team and all that. He's still making the proper reads. He knows this offense. It's very similar to the offense he ran at BYU. It's just, hey, things got to quicken up a little bit. We're at the next level. Mullins, on the other hand, I came away thinking he was a lot better than I felt on the night. I think he still played a little hesitantly, a little overly cautious. There are moments, there's one, it was actually the same play where Ed Ingram had the miscommunication and gave up the QB hit. It was a third and short, it was a third and long, I believe, or something like that. Or maybe it was quick game. I can't remember. Anyways, there was a flat route that he wanted, and I thought he had a chance to do that, where he actually could have flipped up like a big old hand grenade, and it was Johnny Munt probably could have gone up, high pointed it. You give your guy a chance, and he clutched that. He thought about going. He winded that up and then pulled it back down. Wound that up and then pulled it back down. So it's either throw it or don't. Don't give me the hesitation. And then he had to flip his hips, turn, and get it to Ty Chandler, who ended up converting on a really nice run after the catch. And he was under pressure from Ed Ingram, so he had to process that quickly. So it was a funky play, but also kind of impressive that he got from one part of the progression and flipped his hips and turned it on a pretty fast clock because he was under pressure pretty fast. But there was a whole bunch of stuff like that where there was a throw and it was I guess you could see that this is open, but you can kind of get that maybe you could get why maybe he didn't do it. But then he would sort of try and then pull it back down and double clutch and run around. And I guess hesitant, I think hesitant is as a more mild term than indecisive, he just, sometimes he had it and then he needed a little bit of an extra second to really feel confident in it. I want to see him, play a little more YOLO ball. If he shows up against the Titans and he throws a couple interceptions because he's forcing stuff, or he's just trying to make a throw and it just doesn't work out or whatever, he puts the ball up and the receiver gets beat. I would take that honestly from him. I just want to see him take some chances. And I hereby promise I won't get too mad at interceptions if they're just about, hey, he took a chance and it didn't work out. Then I think that would be a good progression for him. Dwayne McBride's game wasn't as bad as I thought. I know there was special teams, the kickoff thing. I actually missed that play because of issues with the broadcast that the NFL Network broadcast that I was watching was having. So I can't speak to that, but a lot of other people have mentioned it, so I guess I should bring it up too. But there was one play where he misread mid zone, and I explained it after the night, but I'll go over it quickly again. Basically, if the C-gap player on mid zone. So you're running behind the tackle. Your aiming point is you aim right at the rear end of the tackle. And if the defensive end is in the C gap, is outside the tackle, you got to cut that baby in. And you will end up doing that like 9 times out of 10 because it's a defensive end. Of course, his whole job is contain. What run fit doesn't have a contain player? So it kind of always happens. And he tried to bounce one outside that he just shouldn't have bounced outside. But there were a couple other times there's like a 4th and 1 he's getting a lot of flack for. 100% not his fault. I think that was on Ben Sims or Colin Thompson. I forget if it was 48 or 49, but one of the tight ends that just didn't win a block. And I thought he like made the right decisions and stuff, but I think he just, I don't know. I guess you could say he got poorer run blocking on his plays, which is mostly just a circumstance, just a factor of chance. And not to take anything away from Ty Chandler's game, though. Ty Chandler did like handily outplay McBride, but I didn't look at McBride's game from the slowed down all 22. I actually get a chance to really analyze what's going on, and I didn't come away from that process thinking, man, that dude sucked or anything like that. One mistake, and I guess the special team stuff he didn't like. And he's not winning the kick return job anyways, because that's Kenne's with a bullet. And then the last thing is sort of a minor one. It's Thayer Thomas, he's not really in contention for the roster right now, but obviously rough game for him with the muff thing. But also there's just some moments where you can see him not be fast enough. And he's such an interesting case because his routes are so sick. His routes rock. Like the way he runs them is really cool. He's just slow. He just tops out at slow, and he can't. There was a play where he was a shallow cross on a flood concept for Jaren Hall, who was flushed out of the pocket. He was the check down, and he just did not get over to that side of the field in time before the quick pressure was there. You just got to be a little faster. And so I don't know if he's NFL fast. So that even puts like a practice squad slot in jeopardy, because when you're making practice squad decisions, you're either putting guys on there that you think have a future and a chance to make the team in future years, and he's not going to grow faster as he gets older. And he's also an older prospect. Or you're bringing in people that you do eventually want to put on the field in the case of a lot of injuries, or somebody you do want to stash for special teams or whatever it is. And with a special teams blunder and also this sort of detrimental factor that makes it so it's like, I just can't really be comfortable with you in the offense. I just don't really see that. That's kind of what I saw in that game. Like a proof of concept of something I was worried about with him, because I was pulling for him. He's a fun player with the baseball thing and all that, if you go back and listen to the Everman series. But that's all I got for the preseason game. Tomorrow's Twitter Tuesday, so anything else you want to ask about it, please feel free to do so. You can leave a YouTube comment. You can send it to me at Luke Braun NFL or at Locked On Vikings on Twitter. You can send an email to lockedonvikingspodcast@gmail.com or leave fill out the Google form in the show notes. You can ask longer form questions there. For whatever happens then, I will see you there. And as always, Skull.